Hi everybody, good afternoon. I'm Luis Barbosa from Ibmec. Nice to have you all here. So we have this presentation here, or more of a talk. Initially, we should be doing it in English. Of course, I'm not a native speaker. I'm assuming most of all here are Brazilians and not native speakers. I hope you can communicate well, even in English. But anyhow, if at some point you want to switch or translate or anything back to Portuguese, no problem at all. Let's not get blocked by the language, right? So let me start sharing my screen, presenting myself more properly. I believe you probably will be seeing my screen now. And here we're going to have a series of 3 meetings talking about entrepreneurship, innovation, cloud computing. I'd like to give a couple of reminders here. My talk, the idea of my talk here would be to be more interactive as possible. I'd like to interact with as much as I can with you guys. But anyhow, in the end, I want to save at least 10 minutes so we can have specific questions, specific answers. I'd love to answer as much as I can. In case I cannot answer everything, you're going to receive through the chat a link to evaluate this presentation or this talk, along with some areas, some space to additional questions. Once we finish collecting these questions, I'm going to receive it, review, probably over the week. I can properly answer everybody. Two last reminders here is that everybody that participates in at least 2 of the 3 meetings going to receive a certificate, and the certificate, depending if your school in particular arranged to do so, can be issued in a printed version. So you can receive by regular mail a printed version of your certificate, right? So not only the certificate itself and this limitation of participating at least two meetings. I would love to have everybody on all 3 meetings. All 3 meetings are very connected and very interesting, each one of them. The first one here today, we are going to talk specifically about innovation, entrepreneurism, which again is the kickoff and give a general overview of the things or the technological paradigm shifts that we're going to discuss in the next 2 meetings. Talking a little bit more about myself to give an overview. I'm a professor for Ibmec here at São Paulo. I work with a couple other universities. Here at Ibmec, I work with undergrad course, specifically for economics and business administration, which is very interesting for me in particular because I'm come from a technical background. At this point of my career, I'm working with undergrad students for business areas, and it's very interesting as I can bring technological tools and perspectives and infrastructure per se, so they can use on their careers and their studies to be better, for instance, economists and business administrators. And it's very interesting as nowadays, that's not possible to become a relevant profession in any field without the technological support. For instance, right now we are facing a pandemic, and I cannot believe or understand anybody that's working without technological support or based on science or based on data or based on analysis. For me, doesn't make sense at this point that we are living right now to work without this kind of support. So that's more or less my profile. So I have a technological background. I'm graduating in computer science. I had a master's degrees in software engineering, and right now I'm doing a PhD program on artificial intelligence. The question that a lot of students do is, professor, teacher, do you only teach or you also work? So besides my work as a teacher, I had a market job. Right now I'm working in a company called Webira, which is a cloud provider, partner of Google and Amazon. That's our main providers, also Microsoft, the main vendors for a very important technology that's available today, which is cloud. One of our talks will be specifically about cloud technology and artificial intelligence. Before that, I work at Google, but not at this cloud area. I used to work at Google Brazil for Google Ads. And before that, I worked on a company called Matchcraft from California that were partners for Google Ads and Facebook Ads. And that's my last move in terms of career shift. And before that, I worked a long period on telecom market and financial market, right? So in the end, summary is this. I'm from a technological background, but as a technological person, I always see technology as a support for different field areas. All right. The main point I want to bring here is creative economy, which we are living right now. Probably most of you are on the high school, probably on the last few years of high school, having seen or having studied about industrial revolution. We have a reference, at least on the oriental piece of the world, about the industrial revolution back at the 18th centuries, which is 17 something, early 17 something, in which before that all the production of the world were done artisanally. So every single producers was kind of an artist. If you want to produce, for instance, a chair or a table or whatever, that artists, let's say, would manually produce each product by hand without any technological or tool support, and each piece would be different from the others. It was a single work done by that artist. So what happened on the early 18th century was that the idea of an industry or a factory were defined, in which that factory clustered a bunch of people, a bunch of those artists or artisans that produced these kind of products, more or less in the same way that they used to do on their own shop. The main difference here is that they were centralized in a single place, what then became the idea of an industry or factory. And then if you move forward almost 100 years old and go to the 19th centuries, what I mean is the year of 18 something, the initial machines supported by water vapor helped this kind of artists or artisans, saving them from part of the hard work or hard labor of tasks, for instance, cutting a big piece of wood or whatever task that required a heavy use of brutal force. Those machineries back then, those steam machines back then, used to help on this kind of activities. My main point here is when the technology of the time changed the way that the products and the industry produced things. So a very simple technology, or the technology that they had back then, helped to improve productivity and the whole way that the industry moved around. And again, if you move forward for the third round of industrial revolution, now to the 20th century, which not long ago, it's the 1900s, few years ago, you could mention that a little before the world wars, the great world wars, we started to have the idea of pipelines of production. Henry Ford is probably the main pillar of that, in which the same idea happened that were before. The difference here is the machinery were supported by electricity here, and the main change was not the technology itself. The technology improved in terms of efficiency, but what changed here was the model or the way that things were produced. He invented or he introduced the idea of of pipelines. So instead of each worker producing a whole piece of a product, for instance, a chair or a table or a car, as you can see on the photo here, each worker were specialized in a single piece of the process. So for the car pipeline here that are seen here, there was a worker focused on glasses, on engines, on wheels. So each worker has been specialized in a single task. He could be more proficient in this task and be more efficient in terms of time. And the overall process or the overall time of the process would reduce as each person gets very specialized on every single piece of the production line, right? And then when you move to a narrow window of time within the same century for the first time, by the end of 20th century, which again is not long ago, it was late 19th. Most of you guys were born back then, but probably certainly your parents were. We started to live what was called the economy of information, or the society of information. That's when the world shifted its production from physical goods to service. So currently in Brazil and as an average of the world, most of the GDP, the gross of the total amount of products that are produced, service correspond about 55% in comparison to 45% of products of goods that are produced. So what I mean is, if you sum up everything that's produced in Brazil economy, in the world's economy, every single chair, every single table, single lamp, every single food or crops or whatever tangible product that exists, if you sum up everything, that corresponds for 45% of the economy in comparison to 55% of service. What is service? Service is everything that's provided as not being a tangible product. For instance, a class that you attend to, a movie theater, a hairdresser that you go, whatever kind of service that you are involved. Today, that kind of product per se is more important than tangible products that are produced today. And when you talk about physical tangible products, each single product has a main input for it. For instance, table or chairs, probably plastic, metal, wood is the main input for producing those products. When you talk about service, the main input is basically information. So it's basically data. And then came along information technology to be able to manage all those information that are required, produce and control service. So during the late 19th, year 19th or late 20th century, most of the technology were available back then was to, similar to what happened on the early 19th century, to improve the productivity, improve the efficiency in regular companies like banks or office or whatever. If you consider, for instance, IRS taxes declaration that you do every single year, back at that time, the regular process to do so is every single citizen in Brazil should fill out a physical paper, a physical form that would be mailed to the post office, and that the IRS or the government agents that regulates taxes would receive that piece of paper and see every single citizen how much revenue each person had and how much tax they had to pay against that revenue. So it's a very manual and error-prone process. And then when information technology became more evident by the late 20th century, it moved to a more digitalized process, not so very efficient back then, but it was definitely a bigger of an improvement in comparison to regular forms and physical paper that should transit around. We had, probably you guys don't know about it, but that it used to be something called a floppy disk. A floppy disk is similar to a thumb drive. Even thumb drive, probably you guys don't use it very much. Most of the files that if you exchange with your friend or your colleague, is through email or any other tool. But anyhow, a floppy disk is a physical media similar to a audio disc or CD, which again probably is not from your time. But anyhow, you could save information via physical media. And back then, the taxes, we could fill out the form not in paper anymore, but over application on your computer. But it was not possible to transmit directly to the IRS agency. We basically save it on the floppy disk and then mail to the post office this floppy disk, and back at the agency they gather those floppy disks and calculate how much tax each taxpayer had to pay. And by the end of the 90s, we started to have the internet technology, and the internet made it possible to transmit those kind of information over the world in a time frame of seconds. And then that process for taxpayer, it changed now not to mailing to post office. It doesn't make sense at all to transmit information through a physical disk through a post office. We simply, it's more or less as it's done today. We fill out the form on our computer, and once it's finished, we transmit automatically to the IRS, and the IRS calculates how much tax you own or not, and you pay online. It's very, very, very easy to do those days. But that's the late of the last century. And again, most of you guys wasn't born in last century. Probably most of you guys were born on this century, the 21st century. We are now on a more evolved moment. It's what you call now creative economy. And within the creative economy, now have the sufficient technology to change whatever business model that you want. And probably for most of you, some of those things are already changed and you don't simply realize, but there is a much more business model to be changed. For instance, 10, 20 years ago, if you wanna grab a cab, you had to call a central line of cabs and ask for a cab to be delivered to your home. And right now have application like Uber that you can ask for a car service without having this kind of intermediary, and you simply use the application. And Uber not only break out or skip these intermediaries, it changed completely the business model, because in the past, in order to be a private transport provider, you have to be a professional and they receive a license from the government. And at this moment, anyone can be a private driver, can be a Uber driver. You just have to register itself. And even without being a professional driver, those guys can drive people around with the support of technology, with an application like Waze, even not knowing his way around the cities. With the technology supporting him how to drive people around, he can be equivalent to a professional driver. That's only an example. For instance, you can compare with also Airbnb. Probably you know about Airbnb. It's a competitor for the hotels. So the hotels offers service of accommodation throughout the world. The difference with Airbnb is that anyone can become autonomous hotel. Let's say you can rent a room or a house that you have for a guest with a paid price, more or less similar to a hotel. In few cities here in Brazil, here in São Paulo, I've seen in Rio also, I believe in Belo Horizonte the same. You can now use, for instance, as an alternative means of transportation, those little scooters, right? You can rent a scooter or a bike and use a green way of transportation with lower pollution and without worry about traffic. You can move around much faster than traditional way. My point is, in comparison to the technology that you have in the previous centuries, the technology that you have right now can shift the paradigm of whatever business model you can think of. The discussion is what kind of business models each one of you guys want to innovate. This can be done within your own organization. You guys can create your own organization, what's called startups. So you can create another startup, create a new business model supported by technology, or even within a regular corporation or large corporation that incentivizes innovation, that can become a unit cell that bring innovation to the company, right? So whatever business model you want to change, it's available. I like it. I like to compare a lot with soccer transmissions. You're probably not aware of, but the first live World Cup in color broadcasted through the world was not so long ago. For some of you, probably would sound very long ago, but it was not so long ago. It was about, I don't know, I have to do the math. It's probably something around 10 World Cups ago. It was on the 70s on the Mexico World Cup. I like to do this comparison when I say, let's think of what kind of technology were required back in the 70s to broadcast a color live World Cup to the world. So I'm going to do a little sketch here. I hope you don't get crazy about my handwriting. It's terrible. But this thing here is supposed to be the Azteca Stadium at Mexico City, and the final were broadcasted over there. In order to do that, probably the huge media companies like CNN, ESPN, Globo here in Brazil, or whatever company, probably have very powerful camera recorders. I'm not very aware of the pricing, but I could guess that should be something around, I don't know, $50,000 or whatever price, or $100,000 to have a very good camera back then. Not only the camera, we have to have island of edition, right? Which nowadays is basically a software that probably can run even on your cell phone, but back then there wasn't even a personal computer. So it's a physical island of edition that could edit an image and prepare the final video to be transmitted. Not only that, you have to transmit that to a local antenna. So here on this side of the board, on the right side of the board, is Mexico City, right? Broadcasting that signal to a local antenna, and that antenna to deliver the sign back here to Brazil probably would have to broadcast it to a satellite, right? And the satellite would relay that signal back to antenna here in Brazil, in Rio, São Paulo, Belo Horizonte, or whatever place, and then the antenna will transmit to your local TV here. So as a long process with a bunch of, and you gladly watch the final here. So a bunch of equipment, the camera, I'm estimating of $100,000, the LF edition, I don't know, 200K, the antenna, I don't know, 50K, the satellite probably a couple billions dollars. So it's a huge investment, right? And the comparison that I like to do is, nowadays, each one of us has on the pocket of your trousers, your pants, the sufficient technology to broadcast a game, a soccer game. Right now, you can even go to stadiums, but if you could, or as soon as you can, go back to stadiums, anyone with a very simple cell phone could be a very simple model. Doesn't have to be the latest iPhone version or the latest Samsung version. With a very simple one, with about 1,000 reais that can pay on installments of, I don't know, 10 installments, 100 reais. We could record the game, and with a very simple internet plan, prepaid plan, which would cost, I don't know, 10 reais a week or something. With a very cheap technology, you have the sufficient technology to broadcast, plus any app of broadcasting. You can use Instagram, Reels, TikTok, whatever application you guys wanna. you can simply broadcast that event to your parents, your colleagues, or whoever you want back at home with this very simple infrastructure. The discussion is, what kind of business model do you want to do here? Do you want to cancel the kind of package that the network sells to us as a consumers for a regular rights of a broadcasting, or you want to disrupt? And the word that's used very nice, it's disruption, right? You want to disrupt this complex model and provide an alternative way, a simpler way supported by technology. There is an ethical discussion that we as a society want to have to discuss. For instance, this example that I mentioned about Uber drivers. We as a society want to be driven around by professional drivers regulated by the government, or we accept using the service of not so trained professional drivers, or even amateur professional drivers that are also supported by technology that can help us to get around. That's the kind of discussion that we want to bring as a society. And you guys, as innovators, you are the guys that are going to bring the new Ubers, the new Airbnbs, the new Happies or iFoods or whatever application that is disrupting the current business model that we do things today. That your guys' role, right? What else? A couple of other things that I want to mention before showing a couple of videos. I want to give this definition of startup. So startup, it's a company that's trying to identify a new model of doing regular stuff. So for instance, find a new way to transport people, find a new way to accommodate people as a guest, and delivering food in a different way. Payment was the financial industry has changed a lot. We currently use even as a governmental standard now, we have PIX, so you can electronic transfer money within seconds. And Brazil is a lead on this kind of technology. Even the technology before PIX, for instance, TED, which is electronic transfer document that you do transfer from your regular bank to another bank, which is very fast. It normally happens within a couple hours. If you go even to very evolved countries like US, electronic transfer in US costs on average over $20. It's very odd in comparison to what we have in Brazil. And in comparison to what you have now with PIX, which is free and it's done within seconds, it's quite impressive. So a startup is a company to find this new model that can be scalable. A regular company and again, sorry for my handwriting, a regular companies wanted to do business this way. So let's say that graph here, it's a vertical axis of revenue, right? And here is time. Let's say last year on 2020, the company have a total revenue or whatever number, 10 billions. What's his goal for this year, 2021 or 2022? It's probably to increase in some level this revenue from 10 billion go to, I don't know, 11 billion. In the next year, go to 12 billion or whatever it is. But it's a linear growth, right? So the main effort is to move the level of this inclination here as more upward as possible, and is normally doing increasing revenue streams and reducing costs. A startup is not worried about that. Startup normally starts here and is not worried about that early stage to find a huge amount of revenue. He's more focused on finding the right business model. So we're gonna try a business model. For instance, Uber started as a get along car ride. So in US there is a specific lane with a couple of triangles painted on the road that you can only use that lane if you are on a car with 2 or more people. So the idea of Uber is, if you could arrange rides and use that lane, would be beneficial for everybody, for the rider and for the driver. So he tried initially that model, didn't work, and then he moved to limo service, and so that its revenue dropped, and he changed their business model to limo service or limo driver. He tried, didn't work, and then moved to the idea of black cars. Up to this day, you can see the image of Uber associated with the black cars, right? But their business model even changed after that. They didn't stuck at these luxury drivers or luxury cars. They moved to a more different kind of cars that are available today. Any kind of car, or most kind of cars can be Uber those days, and probably that were the right model that they could find. And once they find that model, they scale up very fast. So their startup, as their business model is strongly supported by technology, they are able to scale in this, similar to what you see now as a virus, right? If Uber, for instance, I don't know, 10 years ago had 1,000 users, they could move it to 10,000, 100,000 very rapidly. In the infrastructure within the company, was not necessary to have, for each 100 customers, have a new customer service representative back at the company. Most of the service or the customer support was done by technology. It's not necessary to have a very blow away infrastructure of the company to support a human. That's the kind of behavior that startup is looking for. They struggle a lot trying to find the right business model, and once they find, they can scale up very rapidly with the exponential growth. In comparison to a regular company that's looking to optimize a linear growth, cutting costs and increasing revenue. And that idea of the entrepreneur is not something that's a gift. That's something that you are born with. It's a bunch of techniques and sets of tools that you can use and can improve, and not only use in startups. Startups is a very important movement right now, but even within regular companies with innovative business units, it's a kind of important knowledge to have too, right? This author is a very famous one. It's called Steve Blank. By the end of my presentation here, I will leave an article from him. I recommend everybody to take a look. It's a very important author. And then the other author that's very important, it's these guys here. It's Eric Ries, and he complements that definition, say that most of all, more than technology, startup or innovation business unit, it's an organization supported by humans. It's not about technology. Technology is only the tool, and they are very comfortable working with extreme uncertainty, right? So if you're looking to a business model that you don't know yet, you are experimenting a lot. The process, the natural process, it's about uncertainty. It's about a trial and error. If you don't have the right stomach for it, it's hard to follow, right? So every time you are doing what you call MVP, which is minimum viable product, and every single time you are pivoting. Pivoting is also a very famous word at this point, which exactly change the way that you are solving the problem that you're trying to solve. You pivot, you change a little bit on your path, on your solution. He has a very good book also called Lean Startup, and now he have a second book. The first one became very famous. Right. The idea of even the name Lean Startup came from the production process back at Japan from the car manufacturers, in which the production was driven by the demand. So instead of the companies pushing for whatever product they want to push to the market, the Japanese car manufacturers would look it up for the demand of the market and produce the amount of cars according, or the type of car according to the demands. The idea of startups is the same. They should be not pushing products that the company thinks that the market needs. He should be trying to understand the market, and once understand the problems of the market, what kind of solution fits best with that demand, and then providing the service, right? Let me present a little video here from YouTube.
Hey, thank you. Ops, não responda. You're welcome. E aí, eu sou Gavin, nativo.
How does Uber make money? First things first, Uber is a mobile app that connects potential passengers to dedicated drivers. A cab company for the current century that allows you to hail cars not from the curb, but from the comfort of your own home. Technology has taught us that on-demand disrupts all paradigms, and Uber is no exception. The company's been stealing passengers and drivers from companies and city cabs ever since its launch in 2009. Net annual revenues topped $200 million, according to some internal numbers that leaked recently from the private company, which may soon be worth more than $10 billion. That's because Uber's growing fast, operating in 120 cities in 36 countries and employing more than 900 people around the world. Its mobile app helps answer around 1 million ride requests every week, taking a 20% cut from each fare. Ultimately, Uber is a middleman. Its drivers ferry on-demand passengers around in limos, SUVs, even helicopters. But Uber doesn't actually own any of that inventory, which helps keep costs under control. And as the company recruits new part-time drivers with powerful promises of paydays, remember, Uber may want you, and not just as a passenger.
So it's a quite old video. It's back at 2014. As you can see, Uber's have a different image back then. He was still at this period here, probably trying luxury cars. Most of the cars that he shows are even limo or black luxury cars. Regardless, my main point here to the video is he mentioned specifically what I said. So the idea is to remove the intermediary. He called the middleman. So every single business that currently that is a middleman, that's something that can be replaced by technology, right? So that's the kind of thing that I want to show. Let me show another example that I mentioned, which is Airbnb. Probably most of you guys already use it and are familiar with. But I want to.
This place isn't mine.
I want to show a couple of videos, and I would like to try to notice the difference between the two, right? So that's the first video back at 2011. It was the, let's say, early days of Airbnb. See how the brand positioned itself against hotels. Try to find out what kind of aspects it's shown a lot within that video. Let's see.
But I'm staying here for the weekend. It's not a hotel, and I'd never met my host before yesterday. So how did I end up here? I booked it on Airbnb. Once I knew I was coming to this city, it took just a quick search on Airbnb to find what I was looking for. A clean, comfortable, affordable place to stay. There's a wide variety of listings, and searching is really easy. Just enter your dates and browse through pictures of available places. It's free to list, so people all over the world are posting their places, making the possibilities endless. Guillermo rents out his extra bedroom to help pay for rent. And cat food. Before you book anything, you can read reviews left by previous guests and hear all about their experiences. If you have any questions, you can message the host directly through Airbnb. When you're ready to book, you just put in your request. Airbnb holds on to your payment until 24 hours after you've checked in. After your stay, both guests and hosts can leave reviews for each other. It's a great way to share your experiences with the community and to help everybody find the perfect fit. You can stay a night, a week, or a month if you want, at any price point. You can stay in a private room in a place with other people, or you can stay in a home.
Let me pause here and present the other video and try to see the difference. I'd like also to mention a little detail here. There is two very important technology here that you're going to discuss in the next couple of meetings. The video that you are seeing here on YouTube, there is two artificial intelligence that's very interesting right now. So the subtitles that you guys are seeing here, there weren't any translator, human translator that translated the speech from the commercial or the lady here. And that translation from audio to text is done automatically. And not only that, or the translation or the transcription, in the translation, yeah, is also possible to do automatically. You can translate that transcript to a bunch of different language, could be in Portuguese, for instance. But let me fix on that image and let me show you the second TV spot that I want to show. Airbnb Let's see. I guess this one.
Don't go to Paris. Don't tour Paris. And please don't do Paris. Live in Paris. When you Airbnb in Paris, you have your own home. Make your bed. Cook. You know, the stuff you normally do. Don't go to LA. Don't go to New York. Don't go to Tokyo. Live there. Live in Malibu. Live in the East Village. Live in Shinagawa. Feel at home. Anywhere. Do your regular routine. Wherever you go, don't go there. Live there.
Let me save that image with the Eiffel Tower in comparison to, so that TV spots from 2016, and the first one on the left is from 2011. What's the difference of the brand positioning on those two scenarios? See if you can find out. So the one on the right, the newest one, it's more focused on the experience. He's not really worried about competing with Hilton's hotels or Marriott or whatever hotel chain they are thinking of. The experience of going to a city, to Paris or whatever city you want to go, it's to live as a local, not to have a formatted experience as a hotel. And as you can see on the original TV spot, they were very focused on the pricing. So they are focused on competing. If you see, there is a bunch of image here that presents this price tag. You want to show that if you want to go to, I don't know, San Francisco or whatever, they were born or they are founded in San Francisco, there was a price tag. So showing that you can get affordable price even in expensive cities as San Francisco, right? So it pivoted, it's changed their business model, right? I guess I'm getting off our time. Just to finish up, do you guys have any idea what's the first successful product of Apple? And you can think of Apple on at least 3 moments. The first moment was when Apple competed to the personal computer market against Microsoft and other companies. There is a couple of movies and TV series about it. It's very interesting to see Bill Gates and Steve Jobs battle about that market. And then it was early 80s, right? And up to middle 90s, that market was consolidated. Even Steve Jobs left Apple, and then Apple, let's say, founded itself again by early 2000s and brought a very important product. Do you have any idea what was the first product that bring Apple back to life again? The main product was iPod, and funny enough, iPod was not the main MP3 player back then. It's very, very simple, similar to Samsung or whatever brand you want to use. The main game changer here was actually iTunes. So iTunes, any person could simply, instead of download MP3 from the web and then somehow transfer it to the MP3 player, iTunes was very simple the way to use. You simply click, you can buy a track from the record and download it automatically to the iPod. So it's very used to the regular end user, right? And not only this easy use, the way that the product started to be commercialized changed a lot. So in the past, you used to buy a music album. So you buy the whole album with, I don't know, 10 tracks or whatever media used to be in the past, either vinyl and then move it to cassette tapes and then CD discs. And now with electronic MP3s, we could buy a single track. So if an album was, I don't know, $10, $12, you could buy a single track with 99 cents. interesting enough, a couple of years later, Steve Jobs or Apple released iPhone, which was quite similar to different smartphones back then. The main difference was the brand and the quality of the product as a physical product. And then he had two other releases that was not so successful. He released the iPad, and the iPad, if you look at it, it originally was thought of being similar to a book. So the idea of or a book or a magazine, the idea of the iPad similar to the iPod was that you could buy content over the iPad directly from the publisher. You could buy your journal, your magazine directly as you use it to buy tracks on iPod. The problem is the publishing industry that was very traditional didn't get along with that plan and simply said no to Steve Jobs. And if you had that experience in the early days of the iPad, if you open the newspaper stand or the bookstore, there was very few newspapers, very few magazines, and very few books, only the classical ones. The publisher was intelligent enough to build their own application, deliver their own content, and the iPad became only the technological equipment, not the provider of the financial transaction. And later on, other players tried to do similar deals with music. So instead of acquiring tracks, now we subscribe to music providers as Spotify, right? You subscribe to a service, you don't buy the track. You simply consume the music that you want to listen whenever you want to listen. You only have the right to as you have the subscription. And the same happened to movies, right? And that kind of content distribution also became a blockage for instance, Netflix. When Netflix went to negotiate with the huge content producer and huge studios like MGM, Universal, and so on, they, similar to Steve Jobs, only had closed doors up to the point that Netflix started to produce their own content. Here we have the image probably of the first major content from Netflix. Right now, it's probably not a very good content because the main actor is Kevin Spacey, get involved in a scandal and so on. But anyhow, back then, Kevin Spacey was a huge actor, and that was a content that was produced directly by Netflix. And the way that is delivered, it's completely different from the way that we are used to consume through the TV. If you want to watch your favorite TV series on regular TV, and let's say like Friends or whatever TV series you like, the episode is broadcast every Monday 9 p.m. You had to be seated on your TV every Monday at 9 a.m. and wait a whole week to see the next episode. House of Cards was probably the first one that released the whole series at once. And that born the new phenomenon, what's called binge watching, when you get so addicted that you spend, I don't know, 2-3 days without sleeping, watching episode after episode after episode. Guys, I guess I took much of more time than I wanted to. I wanna leave the article that I mentioned. Have the QR code and the short link for it. It's an article from that author, Steve Blank, explaining a little bit more in details that process, that startup work in terms of innovation. And I want to leave the last 10 minutes here to answer your question, as much questions I can answer. The question that I don't answer here, I definitely can get back to you. I have limited access to the chat on YouTube, but anyhow, the team it's relaying the message to me, guys. If you want to, feel free. I have a first question here already. Yeah, I have a couple questions here, very interesting. The first one is, with this industrial future, probably the most important country that you change today is US or USA. I would say yes somehow, but US economy, of course, is very strong and tangible product and also service. It's a very innovative country in terms of investing in technology, in research. You see specific states like California or Massachusetts, Boston, for instance, or Texas, that are strong investors in technology. So US is definitely going to be a huge player, but countries like China that have a very strong economy in terms of products is moving very fast and very rapidly to service and innovation technology. And we call unicorns when we talk about startups that are worth over $1 billion. A bunch of them come from China, right? And not only those two powerful large countries like China and US, the two largest countries or economies in the world, there are countries that are very efficient in doing so. Countries like Israel incentivize and invest a lot in technology innovation, up to the point that they were the first country to vaccinate the whole population. Probably going to see a bunch of innovation from Israel. We are already seeing applications that you guys use, and it were acquired by companies like American companies like Google. For instance, Waze, that's now property of Google. It was what was invented in Israel. My main concern is probably to see Brazil on that scenario, as Brazil doesn't, at least the government doesn't see innovation research as important investment. Brazil is very difficult to move forward on that track. It depends heavily on our effort, on our creativity and our flexibility. That's a very strong quality that we, Brazilian, have. And the other question that I had here that asking about with the future of industrial revolution, will there be a new economy model of investment? If I want to summarize the whole talk today, is that the moment that you're living right now, what you are calling a creative economy is that we have sufficient technology in this. For single one of you guys, one important technology that every one of us have is the cell phone. Cell phone is a computer much more powerful than the computer that took the first man to the moon. Much more, with hundreds of thousands of computer power. Not only the computer power it's available within the equipment on your pocket right now. The mobility of it's very important. So in whatever region, as remote as it is in any part of the world, you have connectivity. You can talk to anybody and transmit information. That's two powerful technologies right at your pocket. In the next couple of meetings that I'm gonna have, I want to talk two other technology that's moving very fast. The first one is I mentioned already. It's cloud technology. So IT and computers are not a physical asset anymore. It's a service at this point. It's a software. If you want a computer better than the computer that probably are accessing this transmission, or even better than your cell phone, over the cloud, over the internet, you can order a virtual computer that's will be available to you. And the second technology that I want to mention, that we're going to talk in the next couple of meetings, is artificial intelligence, right? So a lot of repeatable labor effort that humans do, we probably in the next few years going to stop doing and relate to the machines to do for us. So repeatable tasks as typing or verify information or cross information, or even physical activities of moving things around on a storage. You can see robots. If you look it up, Amazon storage on robots move around stuff, merchandise. It's automated, and even driving probably not very soon, but maybe for our children. I expect for my grandchildren. Probably I don't expect my grandchildren to have a driver license anymore. A machine will be driving around for her or for him. Another question here. Oh, it was exactly what I was talking about. Thinking about cars economy. won't be around anymore. What about service? Two things here is even car, not the car itself, but the manual labor of driving a car. If you think of, it's a repeatable task. You have simply to press a pedal, change gear, move away the wheel. It's a mechanical process. You don't have to be creative. You don't have to be of course, you have exception for it, like professional driver, car racer. I'm not saying that probably be very hard to have a machine that will be able to beat Lewis Hamilton on the track, which eventually will happen. If you look it up also, back at the 80s and back at the 2000s, when the computer beat the best chess player, Kasparov, back in the 80s, and won the Jeopardy game, which is a more complex game than chess. And also there is recently a Google computer that beat the Go champion. Go, it's a complex game as chess, a Chinese game as chess. Another important, so regardless of the car, my main point here is probably you're gonna start not to be focused on consuming assets anymore. The past generations, my generation was a little bit, the generation for my fathers was probably very strong on it. So in accumulating assets. So it was very important to have your own car, your own house, your own whatever product you wanted. So having things and have assets probably won't be a thing anymore. We'll be more focused on consuming everything as a service. So you probably don't have to have a car anymore. Even today, car manufacturers are already presenting different models. Instead of buying a car, you can lease, can rent a car instead of having one, instead of acquiring a car. Because you don't need the car itself, right? You need you have the necessity of moving yourself around. Not only for car, but probably for a bunch of things, for living, for education, for maybe clothes. Again, we are at the moment that you can revisit and rethink every single business model, and this trend of, instead of acquiring assets, consuming service is definitely a trend, right? So, somebody mentioned of South Korea. South Korea is also an exponent on technology and service and innovation, and many others. Of course, I didn't mention every single countries in Asia. There is definitely a bunch of countries that are moving around very quickly. Guys, I'm pretty sure that I didn't answer like less than 10% of our question, but you're getting at the end of our time here. I hope it was a good conversation. Their idea is to the next couple of meetings is to have a similar talk. Again, it's not a class, not a formal presentation, more of a, I call more of a talk. I hope I could present and conversate with guys in English. Of course, probably like everybody here, I'm not a native. As I try to be as fluent as possible. I hope that the language didn't become a barrier, but it was a pleasure. I hope to see everybody in the next few years within the university environment. The university environment, the high school environment is already at the right time to be thinking about the things that are talking here today. There is no such young age to start innovating and experimenting things, but university, I assume that's it's obligatory. I can't think of you pass through the university period without trying new things, experimenting new things, and proposing new things to the world. I work with first years of college students, and that first day of class, I already push the guys and the ladies to try to do so. All right, guys, I guess that's it. I'm over the time here. I'm sorry. And again, I'd love to see everybody back after our next meeting. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Very good night. Take care. I guess everybody are in major cities in Brazil right now. We are living a very complex process or period right now. Stay safe. Take care of your father, your parents, your grandparents, and let's get through that current difficult period, right? Thank you very much. Cherry, if you wanna move the broadcasting for me, I appreciate it.